How do you spend your time? More importantly, are you actually getting the most out of your time? That can apply to both professionally and personally as well. But really, what keeps you from meeting your goals? What is it that's taking up your time? You know, we all, and I'm guilty of this just as much as anybody else, we can all succumb to sort of procrastination, or maybe an inability to concentrate, or disorganization, or, well, interruptions. Maybe we try and do too much. Perhaps that's what's preventing us from making the most out of our time. There are 12 simple steps to effective time management, or at least more efficient use of your time. And we're just going to go through these just one by one. And we're going to start off with number one. Step one, ask yourself the hard questions and be honest. Those hard questions like, when am I the most productive? What time of day am I the most productive? When am I the most efficient? Or maybe I'm in a specific location when I'm the most productive. Do I actually work during those efficient hours, or is that the time when I'm sitting down watching TV? Do I actually manage my time very well? Do I itemize my tasks? Do I have a to-do list? Have I got a to-do list or a calendar with due dates? What is it that stops you from concentrating? Is it interruptions? Is it the kids? Is it the dogs? What is it that stops you from concentrating fully, and how can you improve it? And what about your study environment, your work environment? Is it actually conducive to you working? Or does it actually encourage interruptions? And how long do you work? You know, breaks are really, really important, but how many breaks do you take? Do you take enough to enable effective working, but not too many so that you spend most of your time being interrupted? Do you procrastinate? Do you actually waste time? And what about meetings? How many meetings are held, do you feel, just for the sake of having meetings? And are you always prepared for those meetings, or do you just go into those meetings knowing or not knowing anything at all? So these are your hard questions. Ask yourself those questions and be honest. That's very important. Be honest with yourself. I will admit to my failings. I will admit I'm probably the world's worst procrastinator, and I will succumb to interruptions myself if I don't stop myself. So step two is talking about identifying your available time. How much time do you actually have available? Where does your time go? Do you know that managers on the most spend 30% of their time doing administrative activities? 30% just dealing with emails, just dealing with interruptions, dealing with general questions. We spend 9% of our time on planning, and it's only the rest of our time, that's nearly 60%, 61%, that spend actually being productive and actually doing work. Think of all the time wasters that we have in our lives, such as our telephone, you know, our emails, our SMS, our text, visitors. What about people that come to us with questions because we've maybe delegated something but we haven't explained it properly enough? We haven't explained it in enough depth, so they come to us for questions. What about our planning? Are we very good at planning? How much time is wasted because we weren't very good at planning? And we've had to go back and revisit things that we didn't quite finish before because we weren't very good at planning. How organized are we? And more importantly, what about the attempt to multitask? Are we really good at multitasking? Can you multitask? Or is it better to do one thing at a time? Do you actually manage to leverage your time? Or are you good at just managing your time? There's a difference. Managing time means that we're able to organize our time, whereas leveraging our time means that we make most productive use of that time, the time that hopefully we've organized. Do you work 8 till 6? Really? Do you work 8 till 6? Is that a 10-hour working day? Let's think about this. You've got 10 hours in the office, but then you have an hour for lunch. And then you have half an hour, morning and afternoon, for your formal breaks. You actually get only 8.5 hours in the office in a 10-hour day. And that's without any of the interruptions. And then you've got a 30% loss because of those interruptions as well. So how much of your time are you really working when you're in the office? And what about your commuting time? Do you commute? What do you do during that commuting time? Are you leveraging that time? In other words, are you making the most of it? So step 3 talks about identifying your productivity. In other words, where are you spending your time? And what time wasters do you have? Time wasters such as your administrative tasks, your interruptions, your phone calls, your emails. What about things dealing with internet, or time dealing with support because some of your technology is not working? All of those are time wasters. And what about meetings? How many meetings do you attend? How long are those meetings? And are they really, really necessary? What about other time wasters? Time wasters that we have maybe at home, or maybe when we're in our home office. Do you have the TV on or a radio on when you're in your home office? Your favorite track comes on, and do you kick back and start to maybe sing or reminisce, for instance? What about web surfing, social media? How accessible is it to you when you're working? Are you tempted just to look at your profile, just to look at your timeline whilst you're actually working? And are you really, really able to multitask? So we've got to acknowledge steps 1 through to step 3. Look at acknowledging the fact that maybe we're not quite as good with our time as we should be, or even as we think we are. So step 4 is take action. Talks about taking action and identify your time wasters and deal with them. Identify them, analyze where they are, and then do something about it. Learn to say no. Say no to yourself. Stop yourself from getting onto your social media and looking at your timeline. Stop yourself from attending a meeting where you know that your input is not required, or maybe your input could be achieved just by an email. Say no to yourself and say no to others as well. When you're asked to attend a meeting, when you're asked to respond, then reply back with either a firm no or a yes, but I will do this tomorrow, or this is when I can realistically have the answer to you by. Step 5 looks at identifying, more time wasters, because I can guarantee you haven't identified them during step 4, but also identifying where you should be spending your time. So identify where your time is spent unproductively, and then look at what you should be doing in step 5. Once you know what you should be doing, step 6 should be fairly easy. Step 6 is about prioritizing your time. Think about what comes into your inbox. The majority of that, about 80% of that, should be discarded, could be discarded. Let's think about how many emails you actually delete without even opening them. There's some that can be filed straight away because they're just there for information. And then what about those that can be delegated? Those emails that you need to act upon, that should be the smallest pile of all of them. We should be discarding most, and then delegating quite a lot, filing some, and act upon the rest, which should be a very, very small amount. And then step 7 talks about delegation. What is it that's taking your time that you really, really can't afford to get rid of? Or what is it that's taking your time that you really think that only you can do? Why is it that only you can do it? If something comes into your inbox and you deem it to be something that only you can do, is it something that comes in on a regular basis? Because if it is, then you should be delegating that. You should be training somebody else to do that and decrease the number of demands on your time. You should be trying to make as much time available to you to focus on the things that only need your attention. There's something else about that decision and the delegation. in that when we look at any task and when we look at any email, we should only look at it once. In other words, deal with it. Don't put it to one side and deal with it later, because that's just procrastination. Touch it once and then do something about it. Your most important time is right now. That's your most important time. Multitasking. There's a lot of people that will tell you that they can multitask. But in reality, what you're doing is you're dedicating 50% of your effort to one task and 50% of your effort to another task. And no task is getting 100% of your effort. So does it work? You're not going to produce your most quality work if you multitask. So work out your priorities and discard those that aren't priority. And by discard, I don't just mean throw away. I mean delegate if necessary. Or maybe simply throw it away or file it. You want to decrease the amount of demands that there are on your time and reduce what you voluntarily take on. But you need to surround yourself with good people. People that can pick up the load, people that you can delegate to, and people that you can train to do some of your tasks. With every single email and every single request for work and every single interruption that comes in, you need to analyze the risk of doing it yourself versus the risk of delegating it. That's ultimately what you have to do. And think about the long-term benefits as well. Of course, there's the obvious one of avoiding unproductive meetings, meetings that are a waste of time. Meetings that are a waste of time are generally the result of poor planning, poor communication, or maybe it's just that the end goal is not actually worked out and we don't know what it is we want to achieve. So don't automatically accept every single email, every single meeting email that you get. Think about whether your presence is not just needed, but whether your presence will deliver value to that meeting. Why not just go into the meeting for the 5 minutes that you're needed? If you're there to communicate something, if you're there to communicate the progress of a project, then go into the meeting just simply to communicate that progress and then leave the meeting. In doing that, you're not only managing your time efficiently, but you're also managing the time of others in that meeting efficiently as well, because they're making the most of their time. Think about if you're running a meeting, how do you be proactive in that meeting? How are you proactive? Just invite those, as I've already said, that need to attend, and make sure that every meeting has an agenda and it's sent out well in advance, and that every single attendee for the meeting knows exactly what they should be bringing to the meeting and exactly what their contribution should be. And allocate enough time for the meeting, but not too much. Ensure that you are focused on the agenda, and the chairman or chairwoman of any meeting must ensure that that meeting remains focused on that agenda, and they must remain in control. Sometimes that can be difficult. Sometimes you have to pull people back into the meeting, but that's part of chairing the meeting, and make sure that all meetings start and end at the time that they are supposed to start and end. So step 8 looks a little bit further at delegation, and just think about the fact that, well, you can delegate at least 80% of your work. And is it your work that you're doing, or is it work that should belong to somebody else? Delegating is part of your job as a manager. You should be delegating. That is what you do as a manager. It is part of your job. Step 9 looks at organization. How organized are you? And is your lack of organization stopping you from actually being focused? Do you know what it is you're doing? Do you know how you're spending your time? How messy does your desk look? How efficient are you at work? Ask others, what do they think of you? Do they think that you're an efficient person? Do they think that you're a well-organized person? That can sometimes give you an insight into whether you really are organized or not. The key to being organized is to have systems for filing. And that's step 10, is to develop that system for filing, system for addressing the tasks and prioritizing the tasks that have been given to you. Really what you want to do is decrease the amount of requests on your time and decrease the amount of time that you spend planning and prioritizing. So try and make your system as automated as you possibly can, but tailor your time management system to suit you. Whether you use a calendar facility in your email, or whether you use something on your telephone to help manage your time, allocate time effectively. So perhaps you might want to use your calendar in your email and book 10 minutes to respond to email, and then book 15 minutes for another phone call, and then book 30 minutes for a discussion with a member of your team. If you allocate your time and you stick to that, then you will find that you become better at managing your time and at organizing yourself. Remember that you do need to keep some information. You can't just discard everything. So ensure that you do have a filing system on your PC, or even a paper filing system if you need to, that works for you. Not that works for anybody else, but that's most efficient for you. So only print what you need. Most things can be scanned in. You can keep PDFs now. Try and keep as few folders and subfolders as possible to make it clear when you're looking and searching for something. Just make sure that you use version control, and that every single year you want to start off with a brand new set of folders. It makes it so much easier to find any paperwork and find any files should you need to. And use the reminder system that's in your email and the reminder system that's in your phone as well to prompt you when to move on to something else, to prompt you when documents need reviewing again, or when documents have been updated. That will help you to manage your time too. Step 11 is about planning for tomorrow. Think ahead. What are your priorities for tomorrow? You know, you are much more efficient as a manager if you walk in on a morning and find that your day has been planned already for you. So plan your day. Ensure that you take time to allocate administrative time. That's time for catching up on your emails, but make sure that the rest of your day is planned. At the end of every day, plan tomorrow. Think about when your peaks are. When are you most productive? We looked at that a little bit earlier on. And then plan your day accordingly and schedule complex tasks during your peak performance time and plan filler tasks during your low points. And step 12 talks about disrupting the interrupters. This is our final step for efficient time management. And what we're looking at here is saying no again. How do you disrupt the interrupters? How do you stop people from interrupting you? Did you know that the average interruption lasts between 6 and 9 minutes? But then your recovery time can be anything up to 23 minutes. It takes you nearly half an hour to get back to doing what you were doing before the interruption. On average, an interruption generally has about a 20-minute detrimental effect on you. So you have to manage that. That's your self-imposed interruptions, like the music, you know, as I was saying, or having the TV on while you're working from home, dealing with unimportant things and looking at your timeline. But that's also interruptions from other people. So let other people know your schedule. Ensure that other people know when your downtime is, when your quiet time is, when your do not disturb sign is, and use do not disturb in your email. Use a do not disturb maybe on your office door. Ensure that people know who to contact if you're not available, and then they're not pestering you. You know, have you ever had those texts, those emails where you get them every 5 minutes until you answer, oh, I'd better get on to this? Surely it's much more efficient for you to have answered the question before it becomes an interruption. So move your interruptions elsewhere. Plan for the fact that you're probably going to be interrupted and decide how you're going to deal with it before. And surround yourself with good people, people that won't interrupt you and people that will understand that do not disturb means do not disturb. Okay? Think about your email. Email is an interruption. So try and allocate specific times during the day. maybe during your peak performance or perhaps during your slower performance periods. Allocate specific times during your day to look at email and only look at email then. Do not be tempted to look at email any other time, and you might even want to turn off notifications because they themselves can be a distraction and then they become an interruption because you want to try and deal with it there and then. And I just want to, as a last point, just look at studying, because I know that some of you are studying for tests. Maybe they're ITIL tests, maybe they're Prince 2, other Agile, DSDM, other tests that you have to study for. Well, plan your time effectively. Make sure you take plenty of breaks. Studying is a process. It's not something that you do as a one-off activity and then that's it, it's over and done with. So make sure that your study is incremental. Tackle the most important concepts first, and then with each study period, build on those concepts. But as I say, make sure you take breaks, because breaks are incredibly important. They allow your brain to reset. So we've just quickly taken a look at the 12 steps to effective time management. Now, whilst this has not got anything directly to do with ITIL, of course, ITIL is a way of managing our service management both efficiently and effectively. And time management is about both the efficient and the effective use of our time. Therefore, if we can combine effective time management with efficient and effective service management processes, then we can ensure that we deliver value to our organization. So if you have any questions, any queries about anything that we've discussed in this session or anything else to do with ITIL, then please feel free to contact me at the email address below.